Well, thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. And since this is my first time rising on my feet in this 45th Parliament, I just wanted to take some time out to thank some important people. First and foremost, I want to thank the great people of Calgary East for giving me, once again, for the third time, the opportunity and this great honour to represent them in the House of Commons and to represent all Canadians and, most importantly, Albertans who are screaming out loud that once again this government is attacking not only Alberta but our energy sector. I want to thank my entire campaign team, all the volunteers, everyone that put in all those hours to help me get re-elected. And I want to congratulate you, Mr. Speaker, on your new role as Speaker. And as I heard door by door in my constituency and many others, the cost of groceries today is not only alarming, but it's devastating for most families who are just barely getting by. Well, Mr. Speaker, it didn't take very long for the Liberals to expose that this guy is much worse than the old guy, Justin Trudeau. It's because he's already spending not only more than him, but things are only going to get worse. We have to remember, it was this Prime Minister that said that he's a man with a plan. But let's take a look at his track record. He might say he's new, but he's been advising the old guy for the last 5 years. And what happened in the last 5 years? Canadians got hit with after this Liberal government doubled the national debt. They caused the worst inflationary crisis in Canadian history. Along with that, Canadians got hit with the most rapid interest rate hikes in Canadian history. Food bank usage doubled under this guy and his advisory to Justin Trudeau. And there's no way he can get away with saying that he's new here. He's the one who helped cause all this pain and suffering over the last 5 years to Canadians. The worst in Canadian history, in fact. And let's take a look at what happened with all that spending that this government did of Canadian taxpayers. After doubling the national debt, doing massive money printing, inflation soared. And with inflation came food inflation. And if we look at this government's record since they took office in 2015, food inflation has grown 38%. Some new stats, alarming stats of some household groceries. Vegetable oil is up 50%. Butter is up 45%. Chicken breast, 41%. Ground beef, 40%. Milk is up 33%. Bread, 30%. And eggs at 28%. The average family this year will spend about $17,000 at the grocery store on average. That is $800 more this year that they'll have to spend. We hear all across the board families already suffering because when this Liberal government, under this current Prime Minister's advisory, doubled housing costs, what that did was it made more of one Canadian's paycheck go towards housing. And before I continue, I just wanted to let you know I'm splitting my time with my new great colleague from Richmond, Athabasca. And I will continue by saying that after this Liberal government, under the current Prime Minister's advisory, doubled housing costs, whether we look at mortgages or rents, more and more of each paycheck of a Canadian is going towards housing. And what does that do? It puts strain on Canadians' paychecks because wages haven't gone up. They haven't kept up with inflation. This government did a great job of driving Canadian investment out of Canada, which means paychecks are not as powerful as they used to be. And with all that money printing, all that borrowing, they had to raise taxes to collect it from Canadians. And so not only did they make the housing costs double, which means for some families, it's up to 80% of their paycheck goes towards just housing. It leaves less and less for other essentials and goods. So what are Canadian families doing now to compensate? Well, they're taking on more debt. Credit card debt is up. Now more and more families are borrowing money off loved ones, off friends, and they're not able to pay those debts back. And it doesn't take much to realize how much more expensive things are at the grocery store. We all remember how far $200 used to go at the grocery store. You could easily get a week or maybe 2 weeks of groceries before this government took over. Now $200 doesn't get you very far or many bags of groceries. In fact, $200 might even just be 2 bags of groceries that might last 2 to 3 days. Families, single moms are making some very, very tough decisions. They're having to buy less nutritious food for their kids. And for the first time in Canadian history, 1 in 4 Canadians are skipping meals. Skipping meals because they cannot afford groceries. A third of those people are children. On top of all of that, we're seeing more and more food bank usage. In fact, the most in Canadian history. More than 2 million Canadians are going to a food bank in a single month. These stats don't sound like a first world country. It's not the kind of country that my family or other people moved here to or grew up in. Because Canada used to be one of those countries where you could put in hard work and get by. You could, on one income, afford your housing costs, groceries, put your kids in tutoring, put your kids into sports. But after 10 years of this incompetent Liberal government, Canadians cannot do the same anymore. There's double income earners going into the food bank, stats that we've never heard before. People used to volunteer at the food bank who were standing in lines at the food bank for food. That is the record of this Prime Minister's advisory over the last 5 years and what this Liberal government has done to Canadians and the reputation of Canada. It has diminished under this government over the last 10 years. And when we talk about grocery prices overall, we have to acknowledge the productivity crisis and the competition crisis this government created. As I said before, they drove away $500 billion of good Canadian investment. That's jobs, that was people, equipment. Good Canadian money ran away from Canada because this government made it impossible for anyone to want to invest here. In fact, Canada looks closed for business. By trying to kill one of our most important industries, the energy sector, it signaled to the world that if this Liberal government can't even support the most important industry and put barriers up and try to choke it, that what hope does any other industry have? And what is the effect of that? It also affects our farmers. With this industrial carbon tax and the carbon tax that they had on before, it made it more and more expensive for our farmers to farm. And by implementing the fertilizer tax that they put in, or the cap, these are the type of bad policies that drove investment away and made things more expensive here. Because if it's more expensive to produce or farm, then obviously it's going to be more expensive at the end of the day. We need to get rid of the bad bills and make Canada open for business again. Get rid of Bill C-69, Bill C-48, the oil and gas cap, to show the world that we are serious and we're open for business, so one of our most important industries can help contribute to make Canada the great country it once was before these Liberals, and to give Canadians the most powerful paychecks, because the effect of that is on other industries, whether it's housing, on competition overall, whether it's groceries. We know Canadians are paying some of the highest grocery bills in the world. Canadians are paying the highest cell phone bills in the world, the highest banking fees in the world, because investment keeps fleeing away because of these incompetent policies by this Liberal government. And not to mention the overall, after this government doubled the national debt, it put strain on Canadians. In fact, now Canadians, as I said, are borrowing more and more credit card debt and just debt overall. That's why Canadians needed a plan. This Prime Minister promised one, but didn't deliver. He's just like the old guy. They could have delivered a plan through a budget this spring, because Canadians need to know how much worse things are going to get. If we already know he's spending more than Justin Trudeau, how much higher are taxes going to go? What's their plan to get the economy going if they're not going to get rid of Bill C-69 and C-48 or the oil and gas cap? Canadians need to know. They deserve to know. We're once again calling on this government to release a spring budget and be clear and transparent with Canadians what kind of plan that they have. We've already said it before. They've already started to steal some of the Conservative ideas. Why not steal all of them? So that Canadians can actually get back the country that we once used to have. Once again, Mr. Speaker, it's time for this government to be transparent and deliver a budget this spring And if they really want to lower the cost of groceries, they need to bring more competition into this country. Thank you.
Questions and comments. The Honourable Chief Government Whip.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I spent a lot of time in this House listening to this member deliver speeches. I spent many hours over the fall session. And you know, you would think that having listened to this, we hadn't just gone through an election. You know, I heard the member talk about this corrupt government on a number of occasions. The exact same words he used for years preceding his speech today in the House. So my question is very simple to him. If he's right about everything he's saying, why is he still sitting on that side of the House?
That's right. The member for Calgary East.
Mr. Speaker, the same liberal ego and hypocrisy. Canadians sent me to this House, my constituents sent me to this House, and I will continue to be their voice. In fact, more Canadians voted, over 8 million Canadians voted for the Conservatives and their plan. And if that member was so sure, why did they start stealing our ideas? As I said before, if they really wanted to, they should take all of our good ideas so we can get Canada back on track.
Hear, hear. Question commentaire, l'honorable député de Berthier-Masquinongé.
The Honourable Member for Berthier-Masquinongé. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank my colleague for his speech. The Conservatives have tabled a motion this morning focused on the cost of food. We agree that there should be a budget, and we called for that last week. But on the cost of food, could the member comment on what concrete steps could be taken and whether a code of conduct for the industry would help? Thank you.
East.
I want to thank my honourable colleague and congratulate him on coming back to the House. There's a number of things that can be done. We can get rid of the industrial carbon tax. We can stop. Well, this Liberal government can stop attacking our farmers so that we can bring down the cost of what it costs to farm in this country. We need to increase competition. We're only going to do that if we get rid of the red tape and all these barriers that this government created. By getting rid of bills like Bill C-69, Bill C-48, the oil and gas cap, it is a signal to the world that we're serious. We can lower taxes on businesses, on corporations, on personal taxes, so we can bring more competition into this country, one that they've driven away. Those are some of the concrete steps that we can do to lower the grocery bills.
Comments. Young member for Kamloops, Shuswap, Central Rockies.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I want to thank our Shadow Minister for Finance and the member from, I believe it's Calgary, Forest Lawn, Marlborough area, where I have family as well. I've been to his riding and seen the great volunteer work that's done to provide food for people that can't afford to live under the systems and governance of this Liberal Party. I'd like to see if he could expound a little further on the need for food banks and volunteer groups to support people just so they can put food on the table for their children. Thank you.
Yeah, member for Calgary East.
I want to thank my great colleague who is a great pancake flipper who helps out at my Stampede breakfast every single year, who has not only his daughter but his granddaughter that live in my riding. So I want to thank him for the question. I'll answer his question in a different way. It's my own personal experience. I came from small business. We were home builders before this. And we were home building at a time when there was a common sense Conservative government at the time. And what we had was lower taxes, and we saw an energy industry that was supported, which meant more houses were being built, more people were moving into Canada. There was more competition. Because more was getting built in this country, there was good, powerful paychecks. But what did that do? That helped the small businesses. We used to run an after-school program for at-risk youth. We took $0 from any government because it was funded by small businesses that support their communities. They always wanted to give back. That's why we need to support small businesses.
Questions and comments? A very brief question. Courtney Alberni.
Mr. Speaker, in 2023, big grocery stores saw record profits of $6 billion, an 8% increase in profit, double what it was pre-COVID, Mr. Speaker. But this place is starting to look like a corporate boardroom. You will never hear Liberals or Conservatives talk about the corporate greed. Does my colleague agree that the big grocery needs to pay an excess profit tax?
The member for Calgary East, a very brief response.
We need more competition. We need more grocery stores. It's as simple as that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.